Good morning, everybody. Diane Simmons from Acacia Consulting Services. Just a note to all of you, we've got you all on mute for the time being. We will be monitoring the chat, so if you're comfortable with typing messages into chat, I'll be responding to them throughout the session. We just might wait a few more seconds for a few more people to come in. We are recording this session, so please note anything that you do put into the chat will actually be shared with people. So nothing sensitive to your business is probably what I'd like to say around that. We can always chat with you afterwards if that's the case. We might just give it another minute for the remaining few people to join us before we actually start the presentation. Okay. All right, I'm just setting up my backup processes just in case Tonya's internet goes down. Okay. So as soon as it clocks over to 11:01, I think we'll make a start. And it's 11:01. Okay. So thank you everyone for joining us. My name is Diane Simmons. I'm the Managing Director of Acacia Consulting Services. I'm also an MYOB EXO Payroll Advanced and Advanced Payroll Consultant. Also presenting today, or should I say is I'm just doing the introduction. Both Tonya and Louise will actually be doing the presenting because they've put together all the material. Tonya Say, who you all know, is our senior consultant. She is an MYOB EXO Payroll Advanced and Advanced Payroll Consultant. Louise Mulqueen was brought on 2 or 3 years ago to focus on doing the MYOB Advanced Payroll. So, and MYOB Advanced Accounting as well. So if you come on board with either of those solutions, Louise will primarily do the training in those two spaces. Next slide. So just to really show our credentials on who we are and what we're doing, we actually have 4 consultants that are actually trained on payroll. We don't like to advertise Richard Heath too much because he does a lot of the manufacturing stuff in the ERP solution. So he is, so I've been certified for 7 years in the MYOB Advanced Payroll. Richard has been using it for 6 years, Tonya 7 years, and Louise 2 years. But you need to note that all of us have got years and years and years of experience dealing with other payroll solutions. So we're pretty comfortable with payroll and know pretty much what we can do and what we can't do for you. So the other 2 people who are also in the meeting is Alison Tanner, who is our Operations and Project Manager. She's been with Acacia for 20 years. She's our right-hand person and keeps us all in order, slaps us around a bit, so that's good. And Ryan Addison, who is just recently joined us as our Business Development Manager, who I rely on heavily. Ryan is a welcome addition to our team. Next slide. So I thought it was responsible of me to remind you to keep your payroll up to date. So this is your own internal knowledge. So it's important to be aware of the Fair Work Act of Fair Work Ombudsman's website. There's a wealth of information on there. I actually receive newsletters and do you want to actually just share that, Tonya, to see if you can drag it across?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I've got, this isn't the email of the newsletter, but then we do actually open that up into the website.
So today's newsletter is actually saying, get ready for the annual wage review. Yeah, great. Like as if we've got nothing else to do.
Yep.
And so there's lots and lots of information on there. And the other thing that is that we also work with a company called HR Legal. So HR Legal is our employment advisor. They have a great website with lots and lots of insights and lots of material that they are more than happy for people to attend, given that they're running it for their clients, more than happy for you to attend as well. So I really do encourage you to go to their website and sign up for their presentations and their newsletters. They actually run webinars, probably at least 2 a month, where they talk about payroll issues. So it's really, I think it's really good for you to be aware of the sorts of information that's on there. And of course, we're not going to hide the fact that always you should be going to the Australian Taxation Office and reviewing what requirements we have from the Australian Tax Office. It is important to note that none of us at Acacia are BAS agents, so there are certain times where we will actually refer you back to the ATO or say to you, this is what we can see on the ATO's website, mostly, and we have to do that because we actually aren't BAS agents. So hope you keep that in mind when you're talking to us and don't think we're trying to skirt around an issue. Next slide. So I'll hand over to Tonya. Tonya's going to take you through the first part of the presentation. So the presentation has actually got 4 sections. The first one is around employees. The next part is around the actual payroll, processing the pay. And then Louise will take you through employee onboarding. And I can't remember the other topic, Louise, so you're going to remind me.
Employee self-service.
Thank you very much. Okay, so over to you, Tonya.
Okay, so I just want to start before we jump into what is within the MYOB Advanced Payroll solution, is just, I guess, to give you a little bit of a background for those of you that don't know. So MYOB Advanced is based on the Acumatica framework. That's the platform underneath it. And Acumatica has been around for a very long time. I didn't actually manage to get a time frame on it, but it's one of the fastest growing cloud ERP solutions in the USA and Europe. So a number of years ago, and it's before 10 years ago, I've got on the right hand side there, MYOB Advanced released 2014. Before that, MYOB partnered up with Acumatica, and MYOB have localized Acumatica for Australia and New Zealand. So they've built the Australian, New Zealand versions of it, and have brought that to our countries through MYOB Advanced, and that was released in 2014. MYOB Advanced Payroll released in 2016. So Acumatica, being a very large cloud solution that it is, it's got a lot of industry-specific functionality and add-ons, and MYOB have also brought in a number of, again, localized industry-specific solutions that integrate quite tightly with the Advanced platform. One of the things to note with MYOB Advanced, so there's a dedicated MYOB or a team within the MYOB company. It's built and managed by MYOB Enterprise, and that is separate to the MYOB EXO team and the AccountRight team. So it's a very different solution. It's written by different people, it's managed, and the roadmap is managed by different people. But of course, it all comes up underneath the MYOB banner. And some of the key features, if we jump now specifically to MYOB Advanced Payroll, some of the key features that I think are really important to note that are different to the EXO Payroll solution. So first of all, the secure application login. So obviously with EXO Payroll, we have a username and password, but MYOB Advanced comes down to multi-factor authentication, and it's that security that's really needed for that ATO communication and the clearinghouse communication, those direct links, which the advanced solution actually has. The other things that come standard with MYOB Advanced Payroll is the employee self-service portal, which Louise will go through. Employee onboarding is also standard functionality. And just to mention that it's a true cloud solution. So those compliance updates that we do every year for EXO Payroll, and we log on and help you guys out with doing your upgrades, we don't have to do that anymore. That's all automatic. So we've got compliance updates that happen automatically, but there are also software upgrades that MYOB roll out automatically to their cloud sites. So all of that is managed by MYOB. MYOB Pay Super. So this is as a superannuation clearinghouse. And again, it's an integrated option where you can click your button, create your files and your batches, and you send that off to your superannuation clearinghouse. And MYOB manages that and fulfills that role. And that's, again, a standard inclusion for MYOB Advanced Payroll. So you don't have to go to an external clearinghouse. Some of the other things to note with Advanced, I've mentioned there that it's got a basic employee document management. So, and we'll go through that a little bit as I move through to the next section. It's not a HR solution. It's not a full HR solution, but it does have a number of HR functions that are built natively within the application. And for most of our clients, that will actually solve many of their requirements. So when people talk about, we want to look at HR, the question is really, well, actually, can we fulfill what your needs are within these standard functions? Do you really need to go to a full HR solution? And the other thing that we mentioned there is it's a customizable solution. And MYOB Advanced as a whole is quite extensively customizable, but it also means within the payroll functions, where we had some limitations within EXO Payroll, particularly around the entitlements, we don't have those anymore. We can set up as many pay items as we need, as many entitlements as we need, and how we want those to actually calculate. And the reports themselves, there are a number of standard reports, but the report writing function within Advanced is a lot more extensive than it was within EXO Payroll. So there's a lot more customizing we can do with reports, or more what we often use is what we call generic inquiries, which are really quick on-screen grid-like views of information that can then be put into pivot tables and so on. So it's really quite customizable in that respect.
I'll just correct you on that slightly, Tonya. Sorry, it is configurable first. So we tend to work within the application, configuring the application for the pay items, and then we can also customize it. So we can go to that extra point of adding in some unusual functionality that you may require. But in most cases, a lot of it is actually configured within the software itself. It's only when we come to reports that we actually have to do customization.
Yep, thank you. Okay, so I'll jump over to employee information. So within Advanced, there's sort of two key areas. We split out your basic employee information from your employee payroll information. So within our employee information, we've got the standard contact information, name, address, phone, etc. And that information needs to be sent through to the ATO. But we also have what we call our key employment information. So what's the work calendar for the employee? What's their standard hours, their standard week? We also have information around their employee class, and that has some defaults around the pay sections as well. And we also have in that section 2 box I've got there, branch and department. And I'll come through to another screen in a moment, but branch can be it's possibly separate to your EXO business branches. It can be a separate company and a separate ABN. And we'll come to that shortly. So that's our basic general contact information that you would expect us to be able to have. So then we jump through to some of the other tabs. And so the next tab along we have is a history. And so we can track the employment history of the employee. You don't have to, but you can actually then put in there when they've been brought on, what roles they've had, and when they've changed from one role or to the other. And then if the person, when they're terminated, the system will come through and put in end dates as it needs to in this screen. We also then have contact information. So I've just entered in my demonstration there one emergency contact, but you can essentially have an unlimited number of contacts that you may need to track for this particular employee. You can also have employee records for contractors, which might be another situation where you'd have multiple contact numbers in there. The next tab along, we've got some financial information. Really what we want to point out here is that you can use Advanced for time and expense management, and expense meaning with expense reimbursements. So expense reimbursements don't have to go through payroll anymore necessarily. And Louise has got some information on that when she does her presentation, but we track that setup in the employee setup area. And then we have attributes, and attributes can literally be anything. The system doesn't come with any by default. You set them up as you need them. And some examples that we've got is tracking people's driver's license number, perhaps working with children checks if they have one, expiry dates on forklift license or first aid certificates, when do they need to renew those? Or it could be company assets that that employee is holding. So it literally can be anything, tick boxes, text boxes that you type in, date, information. And again, that's where that HR type functionality comes in, that you can track that additional information on the employee. Okay, and then I've just got a whole bunch of other information just so I don't get too bogged down. But we can actually set up company trees within the system or hierarchies in terms of management, so that if we do go down the path, particularly around the self-service portal, where people can put in their leave requests online, they can go through an approval process, and we can say, well, this person, their leave is requested, is approved by this particular manager. And you can configure then the email notifications that go through to the manager. Then they're I guess, notified that they need to approve the leave or they might decline. We've got some screens on that later on. But they can also then, you can delegate those approval requirements. If that manager is going on annual leave themselves, they can say that for this particular time frame, any requests that come their way will actually then go on to another person for that approval. So you don't have to go down that path, but that those options are standard within the advanced payroll solution to have that functionality switched on if you should choose it to. Okay, and then the other option is the ability to link files, external documents to your employee record. Most of the screens within Advanced will have a little files button on the top right-hand side, and when you click on that, you literally can drag and drop information, external documents, and that will link then to, in this instance, the employee record. And depending on security, and that's the other thing, Advanced Payroll is quite configurable in the security and who's allowed to access what screens and what fields within those screens. That information is then available for other users to be able to open up, depending on their security level. And then the other thing is just to be able to note that there is this self-service concept. So you can have it that employees are then able to log into Advanced Payroll themselves. They get a cut down version of what they need. And then from within that, depending on the security, they can see their information, see all their pay slips, possibly lodge their leave requests or maybe their expense reimbursements. Okay, so again, that's all standard functionality within the application. Okay, so that's the employee setup. Then we get into the payroll or the pay details of the employee itself. So of course we have a standard pay like you've had within EXO Payroll. That functionality still exists. But what Advanced Payroll offers us is multiple standard pays, in that you could have people in different pay groups. So with EXO Payroll, you have weekly, fortnightly, monthly, and bi-monthly, and that's it. With Advanced Payroll, you can have any number of weekly. So you might have weekly 1, weekly 2. You might have fortnight 1, fortnight 2, and you can pay people on those different sequences. Or you could actually set up that this person is on a weekly pay run, but they get a bonus, and that happens once a quarter or once a year. And you can have the standard pays related to those different pay groups. And then when it comes to the standard pay, wonderfully, we see it all on the one screen. Some of the things in EXO Payroll, you've got to drill down to have access to all of that. So all of that's there and visible for you. And the screens themselves are a little bit configurable into where the information appears. I've jumped across in our pay details area. So if we're looking at the tabs across, we've got our standard pay and our pay groups. We have taxation, as we would expect, where you put in their tax file number, what tax rate they choose, and part of single touch payroll that sends off to the ATO when you have new employees. The employment information, the settings, the default, that tracks their start date, whether they get leave loading, whether they load up automatically into a pay run, or you've got to call them in specifically, and what their default email address would be if they are to receive their payslip via email, or if they're to get notifications that their payslip is ready for them in the self-service portal. But if we jump and we're viewing here the entitlement balances screen, and the reason that I do it, and I point this one out specifically, is again, because of the limitations that we've had for many years with EXO Payroll's entitlements. We can now have multiple entitlements, and it can also track non-accruing entitlements. So you can see there that we've got a public holiday as an entitlement entry, compassionate leave, study leave, jury duty, if we need to put any of those on, and we can track then not just how many days that's someone's been paid, particularly around the bereavement leave, and people are entitled to 2 per year, but can actually show you specifically what dates they were. And that's why the public holidays appearing in there can specifically show us what public holiday this person was paid. So all of that is tracked within the system. And then the last tab there is around payroll tax, and that's really just about preparing the report for payroll tax. Okay. So if we jump into the processing of the pays, before I do show the screens on processing of pay, I just wanted to reiterate the leave entitlements. So you can see I've just got a screenshot here of a variety of different leave entitlements that we have set up in our demonstration system. I've got 2 different types of annual leave. And actually, you could have 2 different types of annual leave linked to one employee, which we couldn't do within the EXO payroll. You can see there that we've got the compassionate leave, the rostered days off, the time in lieu is all tracked within this area. So again, we've got additional information that we haven't been able to track in the past in relation to those RDOs and that time in lieu. The other thing that we have in terms of the entitlement setup is you can then configure whether or not it's visible within the self-service portal and whether people can actually request that type of leave online if you're going to go down that path. Some of the other things that you can do then is also configure it that they must upload, for example, a doctor's certificate. So when they're requesting that type of leave, they have to have a document that they upload with it. So that's all within the entitlement setup. And then we go into the pay runs themselves. So you can have, as I've said before, you can have lots of different types of pay groups, week 1, week 2, fortnight 1, fortnight 2. And you can have those pays open within the system. You can only have, for example, weekly. They can only have one open pay run. But if you had week 1 and week 2 as separate pay groups, you could have both of those open within the system at the same time. So you can see there that we've got a couple open with a variety of different dates. That's just because our demo system has been around for a while. But you can see we've been working in 2024 there. And the other thing that the pay groups can do, and I mentioned before about the branches linked to employees, you can have multiple ABNs in the one system. Now whether that is the way that your advanced payroll or your advanced solution would be configured would depend on a number of different factors. You could set them up as in advanced language, it's different tenants. In EXO language, there'd be different databases. But as I said, depending on some other requirements, a number of our sites actually have multiple ABNs in the one database, and they can then flick between the two, and you can link your employees to those different ABNs. And then from within the one solution, you can do the payroll for those different ABNs. Okay, from within the pay, you can import timesheets, you can process your public holidays, you can process your leave requests, you can actually, as I said, manage the multiple pays, and you would then have your batch payments, your electronic files to upload to the bank at the end of that. Okay, so just looking at the import timesheets area, timesheets can be imported from an external system. So if you've got a time clocking system, we can look at different ways of what that data needs to look at to get it in, and then you map the information that comes through. So your external system calls ordinary hours, ORD, and in advanced payroll, you call it normal hours. And you do this data mapping, and same with your employees. There is a timesheet solution within in advanced itself, where you can do your timesheets. If need be, you can link them to projects, and that can then import in across into payroll. So there's a couple of different options there. The other thing that we have then is importing public holidays. So you configure within your calendars that I mentioned briefly earlier on that you assign employees their work calendars, and that can then be state-based calendars so that the different states have their own public holidays, and those will apply then to the employees that are linked to those particular calendars. So you've got your Christmas, Boxing Day, which are national, and then you've got AFL Grand Final, Victoria only, as some examples. So when you then process your public holidays, you give it a date range. Again, I've got a very wide date range in my screenshot, just because of demo data that's in there. And then it will load all of the public holidays that have been loaded into the system. And I've only focused in on one employee, but it would list all of the employees and all the public holidays that apply to them. It will then import for the dates that within the pay date range. So I'm actually going to go back a step here. You can see my weekly pay run has a date from the 22nd of April to the 28th of April. So the public holidays that fall within those date ranges will be what's imported into that pay run. You could, if you needed to, manually put in historical information because it got missed previously. Oopsie, too far. But yes, the system will actually look at those dates and bring those through. The other thing that the public holidays can help when you are loading them in is that it'll ensure that people aren't paid annual leave on a public holiday. It'll actually flag and go, no, that's a public holiday for that person, provided that you've got them uploaded and you've got them in the system. If you haven't processed them before someone's put in their holiday request because they're getting in early, the system will remind you when you get to the pay process. But yeah, it helps with keeping track of that information. And if we look at the leave requests, so this here I've just got manage leave requests, and this is from a manager's perspective, should you go down that approval path. But as a manager, you could log on and look at your team's calendar and see when different people have requested their different leaves. You can then choose to approve that, decline that, give a reason, perhaps get them to change those days because in actual fact it was a public holiday, but they put it in early. But all of that is visible on the screen. And that is locked down to who the manager is. So as I've logged on as a manager, I can't see other teams that aren't linked to me that I don't have authority over. And then from a payroll perspective, you can then look at all of those leave requests. You can see the status. On my screenshot there, they've been submitted but not yet approved. But I can see those, and those that are approved, I can say, yep, we're ready to pay those. And again, even if that leave request extended over multiple pay periods, the system will look at the actual dates and say, okay, this date portion of that leave request is payable in this pay run. And it keeps track of all of that. You don't have to then do that manually. And then once those leave requests are imported into the pay, you can then see a summary of all the different employees that have requested leave in that pay run and who are being paid leave in that pay run. Okay, so that's the very quick summary. I'm just conscious of the time that I'm pushing through it, and if we have time, we really want to focus on some questions at the end. So I'll hand over to Louise, who can then go through her topics.
All right, employee onboarding. Thanks, Tanya. So what is employee onboarding? So an employee onboarding is where we are making a digital format of the usual forms that an employee needs to complete and give to payroll to be able to get paid and be compliant with the ATO and superannuation. Though it actually starts a little bit before then. So with a hiring manager, they need to be able to provide information to that new employee to invite them to come to the company. And the HR team want to make sure that they are being given relevant information, being given company policies, and that they understand those things before they even start. The employee, when they want to join the company, they want to have a great experience. They need to provide information to the company, their personal documents. And when the payroll get hold of all of this information, they want to make sure that they have all of the information before they are required to pay the person. So the whole idea of employee onboarding is to make it a lot less, or make it hassle-free essentially, but get all of the information up front so that when we go to pay people, we've got all of the correct information and we are complying with the ATO and superannuation, Fair Work, etc. Thanks, Tom. With onboarding, there's a little bit of setup that we have to do, not too much, but of course we have to provide some company details, the company ABN, etc., that we're paying under. And with the onboarding, we also set up something called employee profiles. Now, an employee profile can be based around the different roles. You might have apprentices, you might have plumbers, you might have carpenters who are perhaps paid under different awards, etc., different rates of pay. These are things called employee profiles, and we set those up. And the element that we're seeing on the screen here, this is actually very much part of the payroll, some of the payroll settings that we're bringing across. We also have, whoops, just back up.
Oh, sorry.
Just one step back. We also have standard pay templates. So you saw before Tonya was showing us the standard pay that is in an employee's timesheet, which gets duplicated every pay run. So those standard pay templates can be there, and that can also be different for different people and different roles within the onboarding. We also have a default super fund if the employee doesn't make a super choice. Thanks, Tom. The biggest part of the onboarding process is what's known as the onboarding flow. So this is fairly magic, really, the way it does it all. On the left-hand side, we actually set up a onboarding flow, and this may be for a plumber. It can be for full-time people, part-time people. It can be location-based as well. And the different steps that we actually need to create include things like the job details, personal information, tax details, etc. Now, each one of these steps is a type of step that is there that I'll explain on the next screen. But each of these steps can also be signed and accepted by employee or not. Sometimes it's just visual, we want them to look at it, and other times we need them to acknowledge what's actually happening. Thanks, Tom. Of these types, we can have, with the steps that we have, we can have a document type, which is a single document that they're reading. They can also download it as a PDF, and quite often we want them to sign this. It could be something like a company policy of some sort. We can have a text type. I'm saying type a lot here. A text step, which can be something like a welcome message to the employee, welcoming them to their company or who they're going to be meeting on the first day. We also have a step called the emergency. So this isn't modifiable, but it's standard information, they should be contacting, the phone number and the relationship. And probably the most important one is the requirements, things like driver's license, safety certificates, first aid certificates, anything that has an expiry date or that you are wanting an employee to download and provide evidence of, they're the requirement types. So they can all be set up on our workflow that we were looking at a moment ago. Thanks, Tom. I think we've gone. Can you just go back a step? It feels like we've missed a. Oh no. All right, we'll go on with the next one. Feels like we've missed a step. All right. So how does the whole process start? So the whole process starts, obviously, the hiring manager will decide that we're going to be inviting this new employee to join the company, and they will put together the invitation where they will complete the email address, the location of where the employee is going to be employed, the position that they're going to be in, who they're going to be reporting to. We've got start dates, we've got probation, we've got agreements, we've got full-time, part-time, they may be under awards, what types of leave, and then we've got pay level. So all of these things are all pre-decided and pre-filled in as part of putting together this invitation. But wait, there's more. Go on to the next page. Thanks, Tom. All right. From here, we've got pay rates. We can have standard hours. We've got employee profiles. We also have a pay run template so that we know which standard pay that they're going to be using. We've got other documents that we can attach. So, for instance, company policy, as we've said. We've got optional messages, which could be that you're going to meet Fred Smith on the day that you come. And then we've got the onboarding flow that we're going to be doing. Once the hiring manager is happy with all of that, all they need to do is click the button to invite the employee and the onboarding workflow begins. Thanks, Tom. So what does the employee see, or the new employee see? They will get an invitation on which they then click on the onboarding button. when they then get taken to the onboarding platform and they register and log in and set it all up, and it is all properly secure with multi-factor authentication that can be done either via app or with email codes. Thanks, Tom. Once they get into the onboarding experience, they will see the items that we were talking about earlier from our workflow. So they will have a job description showing them all the details of the position, when they're starting, where they're starting, whether it's full-time, and their rate. And as we've set it up, we've asked them to sign it and accept it, and before moving on to the next step. So the signing. Yep.
You want me to go back?
Yeah, right. Thank you. So these screens on the left, you can see we've got different steps. We've got consent, personal information, etc. And all along the path as we're going along this flow, we can complete information. We'll be uploading information, and at any time it can be saved, and the employee can return to it and resume the process. So they may be, needing to go and find that driver's license or do whatever they may need to do. So it doesn't have to be done all in the one sitting. Thank you. Probably one of the most important screens as well is that we need to ask the employee for consent to keeping their information secure in the electronic world. So we also list the different information that we're going to be keeping for them, which is the general details, their bank payment details, their work rights, such as visas and things like that. And once again, the employee will be asked to sign and accept that as a policy. Thank you. On the left, we can see, and I haven't given us screenshots of all the different things, but the different things on the left, we've got the personal information, address information, we have the tax declaration, so that means the ATO tax declaration. We've got their banking information, superannuation, super choice, or your future, your super, as the ATO like to call it. So all of that is compliant, which is a very important thing. The amount of times that we see employees starting and they haven't provided up-to-date super information, and it's 3 months down the track and you still haven't got it. Very important. The right to work, of course, is lots of people with visas, etc., that may expire that have to have the right to work. And we want to have documents like safety policies. We also have certificates. Now, that can be in the form of first aid certificates, licenses, and those things can also have expiry dates, which you can see that we can fill in there. And we can also have the ability to upload that document as a scanned document or just a photo from your mobile phone. Thank you.
Sorry, Louise, just on this particular slide, so most of that information will flow through with the onboarding. It'll flow through into advanced payroll. It'll set up the employee information, and it will push through the tax declaration, the superannuation, the standard pay through to the pay details. Those certificates, however, do not. Where I was showing the attributes before, that's an option where you can store that information if you're not using onboarding. Whereas if you're using employee onboarding, these certificates would be stored within the onboarding screens themselves. So most of the other stuff will push through, but the certificates sit where they are in onboarding.
That's right. We've had attributes for many, many years, whereas employee onboarding we've only had for about 12 months. That's right. All right, so the final step in the onboarding experience is the final declaration. And so the employee will sign this off as well. And once they've done that, that means they will then be joining your company and they've finished uploading all of their documents. And as I said before, if they've got to go and gather information, that can be saved at any time and they can return to this process. So after they've ticked the sign and yes, they're coming along to your company. Whoops. Yep.
You want the next slide? Sorry. Yep.
Yes. Yeah. You're right. Thank you. The Once the employee has started, we now transition the information coming from the employee onboarding experience to the payroll. Now, the information that is transferred includes the pay groups that Tonya was talking about, the pay rates, their starting date, their banking details, the entitlements that they're entitled to, the ATO declaration and the super fund choice, the super choice and their member number as well. Their standard pay will also be set up. And all of this is presented to you on the standard screen, which is the pay detail screen in the system. Very nicely, it gives us warnings, yellow warnings to say if there is something wrong, or they also have an outstanding actions tab if there's anything that is not quite done. So that is the standard pay detail screen that the paymaster will be looking at anyway to make sure that all of that information is in. And once that information has been brought in, the employee will be marked as active. Because
so the important thing really here to note, Louise, is the fact that the payroll person hasn't had to lift a finger.
Pretty much, yes. Well, yep. all of the data entry has been done by the employee, pretty much.
Yeah,
they're providing all of the information, and all of that information is coming across. The paymaster is really just going to double check it to make sure that everything's in order. But yes, so if you've got waves of employees starting, seasonal employees coming on board, everyone's doing lots of different information at different stages, then bringing this in, all you need to do is monitor them in here and then make them active once you're happy everything's onboarded correctly. Thank you. So that was it on onboarding. It seems like it's very, very simple. It is relatively simple. It's all in the magic of getting that workflow correct. So once the employee has joined you, we now are able to invite them to the employee self-service. Now, employee self-service is available via app, via your phone app, or via the web browser. The screenshots I'm giving you today are from the web browser simply because they're a bigger screen, look better in a presentation. So, but if an employee is already using MYOB Advance, for instance, within your business, they are able to do the self-service via that screen anyway. Under self-service on the left-hand side of the screen, we then are offered the different self-service menu items, and we'll cover off some of those things in a moment. Thanks, Tom. So one of the things is pay slips. Pay slips are available. They are automatically sent to the employee self-service, which means that any employee can look at them, drill into them, download them if they desire. Thank you. Other information can be if they're wanting to add emergency contact details or other contact details. We saw that with Tonya's screens earlier, that we can do that. They can also do that from within their phone or the web browser for the employee self-service. They can also make changes to their banking details so that if they want to change, the Christmas Club account that they're banking to or the extra payments to their mortgage, whatever, they can do that themselves. They don't have to be coming to you. Though, however, we do have employers who, for whatever reason, choose not to allow their employees to do it. They actually want a signed document that gives them permission to change their banking details. So that is up to you as the employer whether that's allowable or not, but it can be done. Thank you. We also have leave balances that are available and viewable for the employee self-service. And when they're looking at their leave, they can simply click on the leave request button on the right-hand side to make that leave request, whether it is personal leave or annual leave or even long service leave if we're choosing to show it. Once they go into a leave request, I'll just spend a little bit of time on this screen because it's got a lot of information on it. So the employee will pick the leave type, whether that's annual leave, personal leave, as I said. The length of leave will be 1 or more full days, or it can be less than a day, and so it can be partial hours. The start date and the end date, and then it will show the hours requested and the days requested and weeks requested and how much is available. The employee can also put a comment in there if they want to say that it was, you know, for a family wedding or whatever it's going to do. And if it was a doctor's appointment, or if it's required as part of the entitlement setup that we've done in payroll, where if we say that they must provide a certificate, we can also have them download and upload, take a photo and upload a doctor's certificate and put it into this screen as well. Once the employee has made the decision to put in this leave request, they can just save it and leave it on hold. You know, they might still be deciding about when they're looking at taking their annual leave, but until that can remain on hold, and then when they finally decide that they want to take it, then they can click on the submit button. And until that submit button is done, it is just in limbo, if you like, and only then will it be sent off to the appropriate manager for approval. Now, a manager, if we set it up in such a way, a manager can do the leave requests on behalf of an employee if they've been nominated as a delegate for that employee. Thank you. Now, all of this information, as we said, is available through the web browser or the phone app. I just want to point out that, you know, that's available through the App Store or your Google Play Store. That's fine, but it is the MYOB Advanced app, not the MYOB Advanced Team app. So I just want to be clear on that one. Thank you. And what does that actually look like? So these are just a couple of little screenshots that I did. So providing you, so as you can see on the left-hand side, we've got contact details, what that looks like. The middle screen is the pay slip. And with the functionality, pretty much the phone app does do everything except for the actual calendar view that Tonya was also showing us. Thank you. Part of the phone app is we do have the ability, if the business is running what we call time and expenses, we have the ability to do expense receipts or expense claims through the phone app, which is very, very handy. You're able to call it up and submit the description, the date. The employee can link it to an expense item that is particularly a general ledger code. They can put in the amount of it, and in some cases it may be related to a project that you're running. And then they simply take a photo of the receipt and upload it with their phone. Now, you can see the receipt there at the top of the screen. I managed to find one, still in my office. And as soon as they've submitted that receipt then becomes pretty much instantaneously available in the normal finance system, and where the managers can approve it. And if need be, in my case, I didn't have the right expense code for it. I had to change it from hotel and accommodation to entertainment expenses. Now, diet might not be the right expense here, but I'm guessing here.
Yep.
But yes, so I just wanted to show that is pretty much instantaneous. So if you've got people out on the road who aren't coming to the office, anytime soon, they can certainly be actively claiming their information, giving feedback via the app, and that is coming back. Because it is a cloud ERP system, it's immediately available and for the finance team to do what they need to do on it. Thank you.
I think I jumped too far up to the wrap up.
Yep, So that was it for me. I was very brief with the onboarding and the employee self-service, but we're happy to do demonstrations more in depth of that if you're interested in that part of it. So, but I'll hand over to Ton now to do the wrap up.
The wrap up. Okay, thank you. Okay, so just to, I guess, wrapping it all up, what's next? It's really just reminding you EXO Payroll end of life is November 2025. That's actually coming up pretty quick. Just to note that a standard payroll transition, it's typically 2 months. Now, that really depends on a number of factors. How complex is your payroll? How many employees? And a number of our sites that are moving payroll are actually also moving their EXO business. So they're moving the entire ERP into the cloud. So a couple of different factors to consider there. But it also, we're looking at the time frame going, we can't wait for everyone until 30 June, this 30 June or next 30 June. We wouldn't be able to fit you all in. So we're looking at what's in the calendar. Ryan Addison, who we introduced right at the beginning, he's going to make some calls. He's going to call you and talk to you about some availability, and that hopefully then you can book a time slot that works best for you to transition your payroll system. So that's the what next there. I just want to jump on before we get to the question section, just that feature comparison. I really wanted to point out that Advanced has a lot more standard functionality than EXO Payroll. Okay, so a lot of the things that we've just put up with, I suppose, with EXO Payroll for a number of years and recognise that that's how it's always done it, Advanced has that built in now as standard functionality. It's a true cloud solution, multiple pay groups per employee, super clearinghouse integration is standard. Both of them, of course, are single touch payroll phase 2 compliant, but automatic compliance updates, automatic software upgrades, employee self-service portal. EXO Payroll used to have My Staff Info for anyone that used it, but Advanced has that built in. The mobile phone app, employee onboarding, extensive standard reports. Now, EXO Payroll has a large number of reports that many people are very comfortable with. Advanced, being written by a different group of people, it has its own versions of those reports. There will be some that'll be different, but we can help you with identifying what those key reports are that you would normally use and the equivalent in Advanced. But Advanced does come with that custom report flexibility and also that leave management solution, and whether you turn it on or not, that approval management as well. So that's the last slide I want you to remember before we jump into any questions. So
and
Alison,
this is where I say to you, really sorry, Tonya, but I've had the chat's been muted the whole time during the session. So if anyone's had any questions, they've been able to write them down, which hasn't been that helpful. And I have just unmuted the chat. Alison, did you want to unmute everyone? Alison, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, and yes, I will unmute everyone.
Thank you.
Maybe, but I will also say to everyone, this is my first time doing this, and I could be doing a little better. I think everyone's unmuted, I think.
No, they're not.
Okay.
Let me just see what I can do.
Okay. I think.
So I'm allowing the mic on people.
I was going to say the mic will be allowed, and then they've just got to unmute themselves if they'd like to speak.
Yep.
And note to self, I'll go off and find out how to do that in a
bulk.
We'll do a webinar on it.
Yeah. Normally Hassan, our previous marketing consultant, would have run these sessions for us. So we're all learning how to use Teams as a meeting platform. So please excuse us. It looks as though everybody's
microphone is now enabled. They can take themselves off mute if they'd like to ask a question, or you could put it into the chat.
I better go back to the chat. Just monitor that. Doesn't look as though there's anything in there. Maybe we've just been so complete or so overwhelming that it's just too much. Yep.
I'm going to take a second to just while we've got the last couple of minutes, if there are no specific questions, this is the application. This is us logged into our demo environment. So this is my menus configured for me. I've got my employees I can click on my button on the left. These are my menu options. And then I've clicked on my employee details, and that's my list of all of my employees behind me. I can filter through here. Doing a search, I can filter on the different columns, sort by them, change them all around how I want to view them, click on my little icon over here to choose which columns I want to see and what I don't want to see, and of course, drill into my employee record. From there, accessing all of that information. And if we were using employee onboarding, most of this information will filter through automatically, and I've got my files where I can do my drag and drop of my information. So it's really quite quick and easy to view the information, click in, open the information, and this is where I can do swapping between my different companies should I need. However, within the one, depending on my rights, I can do the payroll for all of them in the one go. Now, we've customized these menus to break up between employees, pay processing, reports, configuration. The standard menu option within Advanced Payroll just has it all in one. But again, it comes down to, I guess, showing you that the menu on the left is all configurable, and then what you access within it is all configurable. It's really quite an extensive system in that respect.
And you can have your favourites.
Of course, yes, you can also have your favourites. And you can have dashboards as well, which I have jumped straight into detail, but you can have a dashboard that shows you pie graphs and columns and all sorts of wonderful things to view on your employees, or sales if you were using it for ERP, or it might be purchasing or stock control or whatever. But again, all of that information's in there. There's a lot of different hyperlinks you can see that will then drill down, pop up other screens for you to view that information, set up additional information and so on. But I can also then have multiple tabs open. So obviously if I'm working in one tab that's going to change data in another tab, I might need to refresh, but you can have lots of tabs. Again, Exo Payroll, it was one screen at a time, quite frustratingly. This one, you could probably get lost in the number of screens you could have open, so you just need to be aware of that.
No questions, Tanya. I'm really concerned, no questions at all.
So one of the things, some of you may have already received some videos of the application from us, so we can send you through some demonstration videos that can take you through and show you not just around payroll, but as I said, stock control, project management, manufacturing, different areas within Advanced if you'd like to have a look at how it may fit for your business as a whole, not just the payroll side of things. So please be in contact with any number of us, be it Di, Alison, Louise, myself, or Ryan. Ryan's going to call you. Ask your questions about payroll. Now's the time to start thinking about it. We don't want to leave it so that we run out of time to do that conversion or transition to the new solution. And we can send you through some videos, or we can have a demonstration and go through your specific requirements.
Oh, someone's typing something. Oh, it's very exciting.
My employee dashboard's a little bit boring, I must say.
Yeah, well, often it depends upon what permissions you've got set up and whether you've got people reporting to you as well. So
I think last time we showed the application, I had a different company I was logged into, and some of the things that we had in our dashboard was we have clients who have to report to the government on, I guess, pay equality
yes.
and the number of employees that they've got. So we've got the dashboard that collates that information of the different type of employees to help them fill in those reports that they need to do. Okay, so Rachel has asked the question of whether or not it's just payroll that requires the upgrade, or is it the entire package? Exo Payroll is the only one that is end of life. Exo Business, MYOB is still committed to it. The application is still continuing. You do not have to transition away from Exo Business. Exo Payroll you will do.
Rachel, I'd probably go one step further than that. MYOB have actually taken some pretty dramatic steps in the last 6 months to actually transition the actual database layout into the Unicode layout. So there's a bit of a transition happening there. And they've also added a few new features around additional fields and setting up password access on those new fields or security levels on those new fields. So they haven't stopped developing the solution, which is good, because we have a large swag of clients, and believe you me, if as soon as they announce end of life on it, we'll be packing our bags and scheduling windows where people actually have to transfer through. Obviously, some of the clients that need extensive stock control and stock costing. The stock costing and batch tracking is leaps and bounds ahead in advanced. So a lot of people are looking at it from that perspective to actually view the greater functionality that's in advanced. So Rosie's asking the question about transferring data through to XO Business. What we would do for the payroll is we'd actually produce a GL journal, and Tonya will correct me. And maybe I should just let Tonya speak. Yep.
Okay, so I guess Rosie's question is transferring data through to XO Business. I imagine you're talking about the payroll journals themselves, which is the same as Paul's question. I was just typing an answer. There's not a direct link between Advanced Payroll and XO Business General Ledger. But what Advanced Payroll does do well is you can, within the pay run, click on a View Journals button. So if I go to I'll just bring up but you can view the journal for the pay run. It exports into Excel very nicely. And then you can copy and paste into your XO Business General Journal screen. So it's not direct, but it's only a couple of clicks to actually get that information there. So let's hope that this will view nicely and I won't receive an error message because I hadn't tested this one.
Actually tested this, and the GL codes might not be. There you go.
This looks like it's a detailed journal, just the way that it's been configured rather than a summary, but it's just an export to Excel and then you can copy and paste it. So for our XO sites, we just configure this screen to look like what the XO General Journal screen is expecting.
Yeah, we could also use the GL journal that is a result of that one as well, Tonya, for a summarised version.
Yes, that is true. Yep.
So there's a few different ways of getting the payroll information or the impact of the payroll information on the business into XO Business. And realistically, we would just pick whatever method suits you best, but there is no push button upload into XO and then XO's sitting there with a, what do they call it? A suspended badge. Yep. So there is no concept of a suspended badge.
But in terms of transitioning XO Payroll to Advanced Payroll, there are tools to help with that transition process that MYOB have developed and put out to us. Most of our sites to date have chosen to transition manually via Excel so that they can do a bit of a tidy up and, rather than keeping the allowance codes that they've had in XO Payroll, they're doing a tidy up, getting rid of the history, giving some better codes to those, or even to their staff, and reordering their numbers, their numbering sequence, or tying it back into their time clocks. So there's a couple of options there.
We've gone 2 minutes over our scheduled time, and I do like to try to keep it to time. I'm hoping that we've answered, or at least sparked a little bit of excitement, or or interest is probably the better word. Interest in just finding out what's available and what's happening. I feel that the solution that MYOB have put together for MYOB Advanced is a great solution, and I would suggest ticks probably 90% of most of the businesses that we work with. We have implemented a few other solutions with the payroll, such as Bundy Plus time recording, which actually does time interpretation. So if you actually have staff that need clock on, clock off times, and then for it to calculate all the overtime for you, that's an option as well. And another of our consulting clients who has a large workforce, they've actually looked at using a product called TimeSite Pro, which will then grab more than just the employee timesheet time cards. So there's a whole lot of different options that are available too. And I suppose the first thing is that we'd like is that you actually have a chat to us about what your plans are. And then we work forward from there. So if there's no other questions or thoughts, and look, if you're too shy to put a general comment in there, just email to one of us. Our emails are pretty consistently easy to find, diane@kccs.com.au, same for Tonya and same for Louise. More than happy for you to just email a question through. And in particular, look out for Ryan, because Ryan Addison will be contacting you just to find out how you're going, what you're looking at, where you can go with this. And if any of you would like to leave, please feel free. I can see that Chris is just typing up a question for us, which is also good. Thanks, Chris. Good to hear from everyone. And thank you all for taking time out of your day. I hope that it's been valuable for you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Right. And Alison, you'll need to stop the meeting.
I think Alison's gone.
No, she's still with us. Oh no, I have to request she join. And I'll come back.
I'll just go into her office and find out. Hold on 1 second.
Yep.
I've just stopped the recording.
Oh, you were able to, were you?
Yes.
Beautiful. No, okay.
I know. I clicked on stop
No.
recording. I'll stop it now.